All right, hey, I just had a great conversation with one of my developers, a really talented guy, and we were talking about work in process. And right now we're a little over halfway through our current sprint. We work on a 3-week sprint cycle. I have 4 Scrum teams, and I'll tell you about that on another podcast, but I wanted to talk really fast about this issue. Right now we have probably 42, not probably, exactly 42 stories in process, and we have 3 more days of development time left. We have 9 stories that have been accepted and 3 stories that are in the backlog right now. Now, hold on a second. What's wrong with this picture? The problem that we've got is there's this mindset that it keeps falling back to the traditional waterfall mentality, even in an agile, desiring organization like we've got here. We've got a bunch of great developers who really want to do agile, but the mind frame is difficult. I want to talk to you about discipline. There are so many people that think, agile versus disciplined. There's agile development, and then there's the discipline of waterfall. And I'm here to tell you that it's the opposite of that. That agile requires significantly more discipline from your developers than a waterfall environment. A waterfall environment, your developers can just kind of roll along and just take whatever you send their way. And you give them the timeline of when it's supposed to be done, and you tell them what to do first and what to do second. And agile requires your developers to be really good. They have to understand what they're doing, and they have to prioritize their work and get it done. So the problem that we've got, why we have 42 things in process right now, is we're not limiting our WIP, work in process. I don't have a whiteboard behind me, I'd write WIP. We need to limit the work in process. Work in process is just stuff you're doing right now. We have 42 stories that we're doing right now. The problem that you run into is this mind frame of, well, I've got this story, and this was totally the conversation I was having with Nathan, this guy. I've got these stories that we've committed to for the sprint, and I've got 3 weeks. We use 3-week sprints. I've got 3 weeks to get them done. So I've got, say, 10 stories and 3 weeks. No problem. I'll start, and then I've got, so I pick the first one, and I think to myself as a developer, I've got 3 weeks to get this one done, and I'll start this one the next day, and I take this one the next day, and I watch, actually. We use Rally, like I said before, to track the progress. And when people update Rally, which is not 100% of the time, I can see the work in process grow. I hope you can see that. It grows. And it shouldn't, right? Work in process should be a steady amount. It shouldn't increase. But what happens is people just continue to take on more because they take on one thing and they hit a block probably, or they get worried maybe that it's going to take me 3 weeks to work on that story, so they bring it on. What really needs to happen is there needs to be more discipline, and they need to take on 1 to 2 stories, and I actually contend that people should take on 2 stories at a time. And I'll tell you why in a second. But they should take on 1 to 2 stories and finish them, and then go to the backlog and take another 1 or 2 stories and begin them. Because if you take on too many things all at once, then you wind up task switching, and lots of problems, right? You end up task switching, which means you're not getting anything done. You're spending so much time just churning back and forth between these 10 stories that you have to get done. If you tried to do 2 of those stories and just maybe task switch when you got bored or got tired and move between those 2, and then picked a new one when you finish those, and picked a new one when you finish those, you'd be much more efficient. The other thing that this masks is progress, right? If I look at the task board right now, I see we have 42 things in process. What the heck does that tell me? And are we going to make our deliverables? No idea, because I don't know how much they can get done in a given period, right? For this, we've got the velocity for the team for a sprint, but I can't really tell what remains in the backlog and what's gotten done versus what's in process. It's just kind of this amorphous blob of stuff to get done. And so I can't tell how we're doing, how we're progressing towards our goal, other than the 9 things that are in done. So basically I have 2 states. I have waiting to get done and done, as opposed to having the 3 states that we use typically in Agile, try to use in Agile, of waiting or ready, in process, and done. So if you can get that, to get to that point, so sorry, kind of bounce back here for a second, to get to that point, you need to have the discipline in your development team to A, not take on the other things, but only take on one thing at a time, and B, be intense the whole time. Because what can happen is you take on these 10 things. This is the normal approach. You take on 10 tasks and you bring them all into in process, and you kind of work on them. I'm not saying people are lazy, but it's like working on a term paper, right? You work on the term paper a little bit until the night before the term paper, and then wham, you're hitting it hard, right? But if you're going to work on these things in little bites, it takes the discipline to be intense the whole way through, right? To intensely finish the first one and intensely finish the second one, and not be like out of your nut, but you know what I mean. Be on task and be driving the whole time, getting each one done as you go forward. Otherwise, it's going to take you 2 weeks to do the first one, and you're never going to pull the second one, and you're stuck. So that's what I wanted to talk about. It takes more discipline to do Agile than it takes to do your traditional waterfall approach. Mixed environments, obviously we have lots of things combined, but this is just something that popped into my head as I was having this conversation. I wanted to talk with you all about it. Share with me your thoughts. What do you think? What have you seen work or not work on limiting your work in process, on showing progress, on taking on too much work or taking on multiple things at the same time? Leave me your thoughts. I want to remind you about the Red Phone Call on next Tuesday. It's the second Tuesday of every month. I have the Red Phone Call at noon Pacific time, so don't miss that. All right, looking forward to talking to you. Bye-bye.